Daniel, and this is the Engineering Success Podcast, episode 20. Hey guys, how you doing? Hope you're doing all right. I'm doing all right. Got a lot of good things to be excited about. Maddie's currently at her bachelorette party, having a fun time with her friends. So I'm here at home, hanging out with the dogs, having some good quality time with them. No complaints. It's nice to get to spend time with the dogs and the cat, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a little bit since I recorded the last episode of the podcast. I'm running a little bit behind, so I apologize for that. But I do have some good things to talk about before we get into the podcast. First of all, I have some shout outs to give for those of you that sent me your screenshots on Instagram about subscribing to the YouTube channel. We have currently 79 subscribers on YouTube. We're trying to get to 100 so that way I can start posting shorts. Shout out to Brian, Gunther, Kyra, Jack, Jonathan, Caroline, Dylan, Karina, Dupree, Valentine, Emma, Stephanie, Ryan, Patrick, Huda, Andrew, Joe, Abe, and Jared. Thank you all so much for subscribing to the podcast. Also, if you want to get a shout out in every single episode of the podcast, you can become a top tier supporter of the podcast on Anchor, or I actually have a Patreon that you will see the link to in the podcast episodes and on my link tree on Instagram and Twitter, and in the descriptions box of the videos on YouTube. So, Engineering Success on YouTube, Engineering Success on any of your podcast providers. Give me a 5-star rating on Apple. I'll also read out the rating if it's work friendly. There's plenty of ways to get engaged with the podcast. As always, you can write in your questions to the podcast at engring.success@gmail.com. And if it's appropriate, I will respond to your questions and see if I agree with you on an episode of the podcast. All right. So I got some good feedback last week. Oh, one last thing. As always, I want to give a huge shout out to our supporter of the podcast, sabeanandcheese.net. That is sabeanandcheese.net, San Antonio's premier bean and cheese taco review website. If you have not checked it out, you need to check it out. It is such a cool time. It's a great way to research what's going on with your favorite taquerias in town, because if they can't make a bean and cheese taco, then what are they doing, right? I mean, if they can't make a bean and cheese taco, then come on, why are you even going to that place? So with that being said, I'm going to give you a quick sneak peek of sabeanandcheese.net, and then we're going to go into the next bit of our podcast. So as you can see, I'm actually showing you all the website because I have leveled up the podcast a little bit. I'm going to actually use this new feature that I've discovered in my recordings to show video screenshots. If you like the videos and you like to be able to see what I'm talking about, definitely watch the podcast episodes on YouTube. But yes, this is sabeanandcheese.net, San Antonio's premier bean and cheese taco review website. All right, so last podcast episode, I did a new recurring segment that I was trying out, and I got some great feedback. So, back by popular demand, we have this week in LinkedIn Lunatics. Yes, you heard it. Now, LinkedIn Lunatics, for those of you that don't know, is a subreddit, and I have grown pretty fond of this subreddit because I think it's really hilarious. And as I've voiced before, I don't really care for LinkedIn influencers. You know, I think that social media is toxic and obnoxious enough on its own without also having these types of things. So without belaboring the point, here's my This Week in LinkedIn Lunatics. All right. The post is captioned, quote, "You should work for free," which, if you've heard me talk, then, well, you might be able to tell that I have an opinion about this. All right. This guy is SVP of Mortgage Lending, NMLS, number, ensure his number, guaranteed rate, NMLS, number. Okay, I get blurring out the guy's name, but you left his face in there, and I'm sure you can find him via his NMLS number. So, all right. Anyways, here's what he says. He says, "Why I worked for free. Parents, read this. High schoolers, read this. You, read this." He wants everybody to read this. Why do you think unpaid internships are so powerful? Because nothing beats having the opportunity to learn from others. If the CEO of your favorite company asks you to shadow her for 6 months without pay, good on you for going with her. Thank you. That's awesome. Would you do it? Heck yeah, you would. No, actually, I wouldn't. Not if I was obligated to work the CEO's hours for 6 months and whatever. Okay, carry on. If you're a musician and your favorite artist invited you to work alongside him for a few months without pay, would you do it? Full time, without any other work, any other ability to make money? No, no, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. If your favorite dot 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 dot, you get my point. My greatest education didn't come from school textbooks, but from street books. I was fortunate to grow up in a small business household where I'd be at work every Saturday during the school year and 6 days a week during summer break. Okay, I'm glad that you look at that as a positive, but that also kind of sucks. I mean, I'm it's I, I'm glad that you thought that was valuable, but like, I don't know. My opinion is up until a certain age, kids should be kids and they should experience things. And I'm glad that that was a formative experience for you, but that's not what I wish for my kids. Also, if your CEO of your favorite company asks you to shadow her for 6 months without pay, I mean, no. Why would I do that? Why would you drop everything for, where is the money coming from to fund the fact that you're following a CEO for 6 months without pay? Also, if you're shadowing the CEO, that I'm guessing that they have the ability to dictate whether or not you get paid for your internship. And you said my greatest education didn't come from school textbooks, but from street books. Just because, just because you're not getting paid for it, doesn't mean that you're learning any more than you would have been if you were getting paid for it. That doesn't make any sense to me. All right, carry on. He goes on to say, it was my second education. It is the main reason for my incredible ascent professionally. Good for you. Without being born in this country, without growing up rich, without having a college degree, I learned to request and read credit reports at the age of 14. Okay, I don't even know if, I guess in some states you can work at 14, but obviously you learned because you had a family member that was kind of having you work under the counter and maybe violating some kind of child labor law in the process. I learned to be comfortable counting a lot of cash. I learned how different cultures like to interact and negotiate. Traditional school doesn't teach that. Work for someone you admire for free if you're fortunate enough to do so. Hashtag small business. Hashtag work. Hashtag growth. Okay, maybe at 14 you're not learning how to read and request credit reports at age 14, because ideally you're not working at age 14, because in most areas I believe that's under the age that you're able to work according to child labor laws. I learned to be comfortable counting a lot of cash. I don't think you have to work for free to learn how to be comfortable counting a lot of cash. I'm sure that you can deal with plenty of cash working as a cashier somewhere at any establishment, or working any kind of paid job that involves counting a lot of cash. Just because you're working for free doesn't mean that you are learning how to be comfortable counting a lot of cash. Not everybody gets that opportunity, and I don't know why that's so special. I learned how different cultures like to interact and negotiate. Traditional schools don't teach that. Okay, I don't know about you, man, but my school experience, I was around a very diverse group of people, and in my college experience, I did learn how different cultures like to interact. And in my high school, I learned how different cultures like to interact. I went to a very diverse high school. And again, just because you're working for free doesn't mean you have more exposure to different cultures. I think that's just more dependent on where you are. So you can learn how different cultures, how to interact and negotiate by working any job. You can learn how to be responsible and show up to work today every day on time by working a real job where you get paid to do so. I think it's really sad that in some industries unpaid internships are the norm. I think it should be illegal. I think that it's a violation of some kind of labor law, and I just, especially not in engineering, it's definitely should never be. It's definitely, you shouldn't be in a situation where you're looking for an engineering internship and you're having to choose an unpaid internship. I think it's really cool that some colleges and universities like partnering with companies to like help fund some engineering internships to get their students more internships, and to not just engineering, but I know my school Trinity has partnerships with, they actually have grant funding or some kind of funding where they actually incentivize companies and nonprofits and stuff to hire Trinity interns because they pay for some of it, and I think that's cool. I think that, but putting it on a kid that's maybe likely pulling in a bunch of debt or has no other source of income, or just putting somebody in a situation where they have to work a whole other job just to be able to afford their unpaid internship, I think that should not be normalized. I think that should be shamed. I think that it's really weird company simp like behavior.
I'm not complaining. My thoughts get complicated. I cannot explain in lameness. Never losing focus because I ain't chasing payments. Still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries. Thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify. They put me on the station.